The Goat Rocks Wilderness, a mysterious place. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe it's just something you're vaguely aware of if you live in Northwest Oregon or Southwest Washington. Goat Rocks. Sounds interesting. I wonder what that's all about. Are there goats at Goat Rocks? Goat Rocks refers to a string of alpine peaks ranging in elevation between 6,700 to 8,200 feet that are actually part of the same extinct and eroded stratovolcano that saw most of its activity about 3.2 million years ago. So it's a dead volcano. Goat Rocks is located south of Mount Rainier and north of Mount Adams. There's no easy way to get to Goat Rocks. It's 3.5 hours from Portland and 3.5 hours from Seattle, so it's best to plan this one as an overnighter at the least, or better yet, to plan to backpack this one. Fortunately, the Pacific Crest Trail passes right through this area, and there are a lot of really great camping spots leading up to and along the PCT. There is no easy way to see this natural wonder up close. They aren't really visible from the highway except in little glimpses, and they appear too far away while standing on Mount Rainier or Mount Adams to really make sense of them. So, getting a good view of the Goat Rocks is really going to require a camp out and a hike, or maybe a camp out while on a hike. One of the more accessible ways to get a glimpse of these mysterious peaks is to hike Snowgrass Trail up to the bypass, follow the PCT, and then hike back down to the Snowgrass Trail. It makes for a relatively moderate difficulty out and back lollipop, netting about 2,100 feet of climbing over a total of 11.2 miles of hiking. Get to the Snowgrass Trailhead by first turning right off of Highway 12 to Forest Service Road 21 and driving 13.1 miles up this ridiculously rough and washboarded dusty road to this unmarked intersection. This intersection used to be marked, but the sign disappeared. So set your odometer and look at this video closely because that's the only way you're finding this intersection. Turn left at this intersection and proceed 3.2 miles up this also terrible yet passable road until you get to the one-way road on your right leading to the parking area. This parking area can fill up very fast, so either be early or better yet, plan your trip for midweek. Despite being hard to find, this area is very popular. Plan accordingly. Make sure that when you park here, you don't do that obnoxious thing where you take up 4 parking spots by parallel parking in the turnouts. They're made for people to pull straight in, so please do so. Passenger cars can handle these roads just fine, so if you are able to leave your long truck in the driveway and take the Corolla, please consider doing so to save space at this trailhead. Also, don't forget your Northwest Forest Pass. There is no pay station at the trailhead. Pick one up at the ranger station before you head up Road 21. Make sure you fill out a wilderness permit at the trail kiosk. Everyone needs to fill one out and attach the carbon copy to a visible part of their pack. It's how they begin the search for you if you fail to check in with your loved ones. The trail starts off as a relatively easygoing hike for the first approximately 2.5 miles, sort of just following the contour of the mountain on a nice side cut that stays relatively flat and doesn't really gain any elevation. It's not completely flat, mind you, but it's not particularly treacherous and or intense at this point. The surface is mostly ashy soil with pine needles, and the forest is mostly hemlock, Doug fir, noble fir, and cedar. But look at these cedar trees closely. These aren't your typical western red cedar that you might be accustomed to seeing in the lower elevation forests. You don't really get much for views on the first 4.5 miles of this hike, and this beginning section is no exception, offering you your first limited exposure at a half mile and offering a first grudging glimpse of the Goat Rocks at the 1 mile mark. After the gradual climb of the first 2.5 miles, the next 3 miles will gain 1,900 feet to the summit of this hike. Not the worst leg burner by Pacific Northwest standards, but it's not exactly trivial either. There's a slightly confusing intersection on the other side of this bridge at the 1.8 mile point. Just don't turn right onto the rock slide. It won't take you anywhere. So this rock slide is not the trail. So if you get here on the other side of the bridge and you see this rock slide, you need to turn around because the actual trail goes to the left after the bridge. So don't try to traverse this rock slide. Don't bother climbing to the top of the rock slide either, it's just more trees. Don't follow the stock trail. It has horse poop on it. Probably. The creek here is quite fetching, and there is a waterfall upstream of the bridge. When you're done pondering the results of gravity on liquid water, continue up the hill as the trail starts to get steep and rockier. After the rock slide on the other side of the bridge, the trail takes you to this sort of marshy section. So now I'm at this marshy section. The trail's kind of moving through. See, I'm always a bit skeptical of these kinds of trail building decisions. Maybe there was nowhere else to route it. But as pretty as marshes are, I generally prefer if a trail is routed up on the ridge a little bit, because you get a lot of bugs in the marsh, a lot of biting flies and mosquitoes. So if you can get out of the wet areas, it makes for a more pleasant experience overall, in my opinion. You'll encounter the first actual switchback at about the 3.2 mile mark. If you weren't paying close attention, you might not have realized this was a switchback until you encountered the waterfall. So I just got confused a little because I'm standing at the first bona fide switchback that I've come across on the whole trail, and accidentally just kept going over here, but there's a reason. There's this kind of fake little trail here, as you can probably hear. There's a waterfall over here. It's kind of hard to, oh, that's pretty. It's kind of hard to see. But it's sliding down to the salt. Beautiful. After the switchback, it's only 500 feet of trail climbing, over 100 feet of elevation before you get to the top of the waterfall. It's definitely the top of a waterfall. Enjoy. More climbing. Keep hiking. At the 3.5 mile mark, you come to the second set of switchbacks on this climb. It pops out at this reasonably interesting exposure, affording you an okay view of Goat Ridge. So that's pretty cool, finally getting to see something after a mere 3.5 miles of hiking now that you're gaining elevation. From this switchback, it's another 1,400 feet of trail, gaining a modest 150 feet of elevation until you arrive at this intersection with the bypass trail number 97. This is where you're going to create a lollipop. It is imperative that you go right and take the bypass trail. This is a brilliant addition to the trail system that allows you to create a lollipop out of snowgrass and gets day hikers up onto the Pacific Crest Trail for a little bit. Some of you who have access to a topographical map may point out that there is an even awesomer loop that wraps around Goat Lake, then descends the backside of Goat Ridge before dropping back to the same parking lot Snowgrass started from. So why the lollipop? Well, look at this aerial view from Google Earth. Even in this aerial view, Goat Lake is iced over. Well, guess what? Even in mid-July, when this video was shot, Goat Lake was still socked in with rotten snow, whereas Snowgrass was relatively snow-free. So there's your answer. Anyhow, the hike really starts to get gorgeous and exotic here, meandering through alpine meadows full of tall grass that doubtless will be popping with gorgeous wildflowers within a couple weeks after this video was shot. There are even burbling alpine streams like this one. It's almost like you're in the middle of a story. It's only like 1/10 of a mile up the bypass trail before the forest relents and allows the first grudging view of Mount Adams. It's our first view of Mount Adams. I think there's one down farther, but this is the first like halfway decent view of Mount Adams. Hopefully there's more to come. There's a decent place to camp about a 1/4 mile into this bypass section right next to this creek crossing. You'll really start noticing the trees becoming more stunted and tortured here. You're getting closer to the timberline and your sense of anticipation should be rising. But first, you'll have to climb over this huge old tree that came down. Keep in mind that this is wilderness area, so all blowdown has to be removed with hand tools. Thank you, trail maintainers. 0.8 miles after the creek crossing, you'll finally come to the junction with the Pacific Crest Trail. First, you'll cross over more pretty alpine meadows and streams like this one that cross right over the trail. Anyhow, after some significant climbing, you'll arrive at this cairn marking the intersection with the Pacific Crest Trail. Turn left here. Keep hiking, and after another 1/2 mile and 200 feet of climbing, you'll finally, after 5.3 miles of hiking, come to the first real exposure revealing the Goat Rocks in all their glory. And there you have it, the view you came for. But it's not over yet. As the trail climbs, other peaks start to reveal themselves. On the same exposure, looking south, there's a great view of Mount Adams. This whole meadow, you can tell it's just barely starting to sprout right now because we had a really cold winter with a lot of snowfall, so it took a long time for things to melt out. But I'm sure in about 2 weeks, maybe three, but probably 2 weeks at most, this is going to be exploding with wildflowers. I can just see it. I mean, there are already a few poking up, but this is going to be insane in just a little while. It's a shame that there weren't any blooming wildflowers in this video, but it's difficult to time wildflower blooms. That being said, wildflowers are one of the main reasons people come to Snowgrass Flat, and it's a guarantee that as soon as word gets out that the flowers are blooming, it will be impossible to park at the trailhead and these meadows will be swarming with hikers and bees. Hikers and bees, all here for the flowers. At this point, you'll wish you brought your overnight gear if you didn't. You'll be kicking yourself for not making this a backpacking trip. You'll forget all about the last boring 5.5 miles you spent climbing to this point because just look at these views. This place is unbelievable and you almost neglected to ever hike here. Shame on you. So just take a moment to let it all sink in. All good things do have to come to an end, and presently, if you keep heading north on the Pacific Crest Trail, you'll come to this intersection with the Snowgrass Trail that affords you the best vantage point on the whole hike. This is as good as it gets, and it's jaw-dropping. Aren't you glad you came? I sure am. Anyhow, it's all literally downhill from here. Follow the Snowgrass Trail, and if you come across this, look at that, I'm on the Snowgrass bypass, back down to the Snowgrass Trail, and come across the snowfields. Then resist the temptation to hike over Goat Lake and make a loop of it. But that's still, one snowfield's not too bad. Oh, but there are more snowfields to come, my friend. My goodness, there are a lot more snowfields on this side of the trail. So, yeah. Like I said, it's mid-July. So if you're gonna do this hike, bring trekking poles. Helps keep your balance in snowfields. They do indeed. Once you've traversed the snowfields, you'll end up at this intersection. Once again, if you encountered any snow, do not hike to Goat Lake. I know you want to, but don't. Wait until it melts out. Stay on Snowgrass Trail. Conversely, if you didn't come across any snow, then hike to Goat Lake. Eventually, you'll come back to this intersection with the bypass trail. You know what to do now. Go back the way you came. The descent is really not so bad. You'll be a happier person when you get back to the car. Now lace up your boots and go take a hike.